Two Gay Geeks, episode 289, August 31st, 2020, discovering indigenous foods. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the two gay geeks, talk about all aspects of geek-to-men nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre. You name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from DG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona, where we've had 50 days over 110.
And I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from a place where I'm just counting down the days for when autumn is supposed to come here. Fall is coming. Fall is coming.
From the melted Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
Well, let's get on with this show.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the two gay geeks are discussing this.
Well, in this episode, we have got an interview with Sanjay Rawal. He is a filmmaker. Actually, he's a documentary filmmaker.
Documentarian, I think is the term.
Documentarian, yes. And he has a new film that's coming out, and he's going to tell us all about that. We're going to have our birthday shout-outs. There's some interesting birthdays this time, our featured podcast of the week, and some feedback, as well as our shout-outs. In our second segment, we've got a couple of things planned there, should we have time.
Oh,
and
I hope so.
Then our weekly recap and our shout-outs. So let's get on and talk to Sanjay. And this time we welcome to our show Sanjay Rawal. He is a documentary filmmaker, and he has a brand new film that is coming out really soon. So welcome to the show, Sanjay.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be on.
Yeah. So tell us, who is Sanjay Rawal, and how did you get into filmmaking? Well,
I am an Indian American from East India, which is an important distinction as our conversation begins to blossom. I came to the States when I was really, really young and went to college. Parents were both professors, but ended up really not wanting to follow the academic track that they had hoped I would. I started working on human rights projects, and those projects took me to about 40 countries. I started foundations for rappers, actors, musicians, worked with a lot of Nobel Peace Laureates, but along the way, I began shooting photos. And when cameras began having the capability of capturing video, I did that too. And I was often in war zones or conflict zones that had top photographers coming through. And I collected tips over the years and started making short films. They didn't stink, which was great. It wasn't necessarily a waste of anybody else's time.
Right.
And in 2014, I released my first documentary, Food Chains, about migrant farm workers. Eva Longoria produced it, and Forest Whitaker narrated it.
Oh, cool. So it's interesting how cameras have evolved over the years. I'm an old analog fan. I grew up with analog photography, and it's just, I love black and white and love cameras. So today I carry my iPhone around, and that's all I need. And my poor analog photography and even my digital camera are just sitting there gathering dust. So it's amazing what can be done.
I know exactly what you mean. And I was really glad to enter into filmmaking through photography.
Right. So it also allows you, if you have had that background in photography, to know what angles and what light does, and and all of the different things that help you, especially, I would think, in a documentary filmmaking process of how do you catch the right shot, So, what is the newest project you have? This one was very interesting. I don't know what it is, but...
because we ran a press release on it, so of course we know.
Yeah, so tell our audience, what is your newest film that you have, or your newest documentary? This one is very interesting.
Well, I'm just about to release a film called Gather, which looks at the Native American food system. Now, keep in mind that Native Americans lived in the Western Hemisphere. We'll refer to it as Turtle Island. They lived on Turtle Island for thousands of years before Europeans first made contact.
Absolutely.
And much of the world's cuisine actually comes from things that the Europeans brought back to other parts of the world. Keep in mind, there were no Irish potatoes before the 1600s. There was no such thing as Swiss chocolate. Even in my part of the world, India, we didn't have spicy food. So it's just hard to imagine how much of the world's cuisine has been radically transformed and depends on things that were basically, developed in the New World on Turtle Island.
Yeah, it
Right.
almost makes you wonder, what is indigenous cuisine these days?
Exactly. Well, I mean,
Exactly.
You certainly have to say, what is the modern indigenous, shall we say?
Well, that's that's
That's
almost
an oxymoron.
If it's a contradiction in terms.
But okay, so I enjoy when you talk about indigenous people, because I grew up in northeastern Oklahoma, where the tribes were resettled in Oklahoma from other parts of the country. Mm-hmm. So, and then we obviously we live in Arizona, so there's a huge indigenous population here, and some that don't exist anymore. So I really can appreciate what you're trying to do with this film and them capturing their native food sources again.
I mean, there's a lot of corollaries between what Native Americans are struggling for and the modern Black Lives Matter movement.
Exactly.
I think we can all agree that in the last 6 months, we've all gotten a good education on the legacy of early practices of slavery. But the obverse of that coin was that for our country to even exist, we needed land. And that land was taken from Native Americans.
Absolutely.
The first economy was completely based on agriculture, and all of that land was essentially wrestled away from the first people here.
Yep.
So the issues that they're facing, they go all the way back to the founding of this country and before that.
Exactly.
How did you come across this particular subject?
So, the documentary film industry started with a very kind of ethnocentric staged film in 1929, if you can believe it. It was called Nanook of the North by a filmmaker named Robert Flaherty.
Yep.
And it took the U.S. by storm. It was by far the most popular film of the year. And, tens of thousands of people flocked to the theaters to see what a Native American life looked like.
Exactly.
Now, keep in mind, this is already past the period where natives were subjugated by force, and so it was mythological, the existence of these wild, dark-skinned people.
Right.
And so there's always been a fascination with Native Americans that way.
Exactly. And that was a groundbreaking documentary, if you will. I mean, it was the first documentary, obviously, and I was reading about that recently, and how it really changed the film industry.
Yeah, and we've seen, depictions of natives since then, for the most part in Hollywood, being very, very one-sided.
Oh God! I mean, I got to look at any John Wayne movie. And it's nothing but racial stereotypes. I mean, it's terrible. Because I'm American Indian myself. I'm Paiute or part Paiute. So when I see that kind of thing, I find it just grossly offensive in so many ways, because the American Indian culture is just so multifaceted. I mean, you go from one tribe to another, and you really see all these differences in beliefs and how they lived. So it's nice to see a documentary that's coming, that you're giving us, that provides, you're pulling the curtain back, shall we say, and allowing people to get a really good look as to what kind of existence this group of people actually have.
I hear you. And it's like one of the things that most of us who don't live in states that have Native American reservations think. Like we don't really realize that there's 3 million natives here today.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so much of our food culture comes from things that they developed. And so the film really was my own exploration into, the American food story. Like, what exactly is it? It's not what I get at Whole Foods. It's not what I get at the farmer's market. It's not what every immigrant, every immigrant population is necessarily brought to the U.S. It stretches back even further. And I wanted to kind of explore that.
Right. So how did you choose the individuals that you're showcasing in this documentary?
I've made human rights films in the past, but I wanted this one to really appeal to people just on the culinary aspect. There's a chef that I met named Nephi Craig, who's probably a little east of where you guys are, in White Mountain on the border of Arizona and New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And he was a top sous chef in a lot of great kitchens, but kind of struggled with the Anthony Bourdain lifestyle, and his addictions basically ended his career.
Right.
He went back to the reservation and reacquainted himself with what food meant. That it wasn't necessarily this high octane fuel for his ambition, but it could possibly mean something deeper.
Right.
And he found that meaning, and that meaning gave him health and sobriety.
Right.
And so he was in the process of building a restaurant. Like, what better arc to have than somebody trying to open a restaurant?
Exactly. And the population, the Navajo reservation up there in White Rock and all of that whole area up there, it really is like stepping back in time in certain areas of that, and to see how they have lived for thousands of years. It's truly an amazing thing that they've done up there. And
I mean, that kind of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, they're still poor, but they make it work. And
the thing that we try to explore in the movie is how much of that poverty is by design.
Right.
And how, the American government hasn't always been that great.
Nope.
And as a way to subjugate, these militarily powerful people who knew their land, the military began destroying their food.
Yep.
And then they began capturing kids and putting them into boarding schools. So we're in a state right now where these civilizations have lost touch with a lot of what made them healthy and vibrant. And they're just trying to reconnect with that, because there's never going to be a Whole Foods. There's never going to be beautiful farmers markets, because they're in the middle of nowhere.
Right. You just touched. Well, first you touched on two things that were that resonated, and the second one was taking the kids and putting them in boarding schools, and we've got a lot of Indian schools. That are they're no longer in service now. They're just historical buildings throughout Phoenix. But the first one I think is of most importance, because I think that's the one that probably pertains most to your film, and that is how the Native Americans had a lot of their food sources just utterly decimated. And I guess now, according to your documentary, now they're in a process of reclaiming that. Can you tell? I mean, what did you learn about that?
Yeah, when European colonizers came to the New World, they basically tried to make the New World into Europe. Like, they brought cows and they started growing, just the same old farms. Whereas the Native American food system was incredibly diverse. They didn't have the same type of animal husbandry practices, but they meticulously managed herds of bison. They followed elk. They knew the migration patterns of salmon. And so their diets were so rich and diverse. Right. They didn't just farm traditionally. They went into the woods and they picked berries, they picked tubers, they foraged herbs. And when we think about like how much of that diversity is lost and how kind of homogeneous our American diet is, it's a little sad. Like you go to any supermarket and it's all the same stuff. You go to any farmer's market, it's pretty much all the same stuff. But there were hundreds of other things that they ate and that obviously grow perfectly well in North America. And so we got to see what that hyper local diet could look like and how much more fun it would be to cook with like 500 ingredients rather than 15.
Right. Mm-hmm. I lived in New Mexico too, so I slowly made my trek west from Oklahoma to New Mexico and appreciate the cuisine there, and then to Arizona. And I really love the native cuisines of New Mexico and of Arizona, and to imagine that there is a much larger possibilities of things to use just excites me because I love to cook as well. So
exactly. And it's like, if we think about the fact that there wasn't a border between what's now Mexico and the US, it's like you can imagine 50, 60 years ago, people just eating kind of junky corn chips, like junky tortillas. But if you've had a chance to like you guys have spent time in the Southwest or go to Mexico or even Oaxaca, you realize like, oh my God, corn is so much more than just, tortillas and creamed corn and corn on the cob.
Oh my gosh.
People make like gelatos, people make pastries, people make so many things out of corn. And you just go like, we can just from like a non-political standpoint, even if we got to learn how these cultures have eaten these vegetables for 500 years, it'd just be so much more fun.
Right. Well, it's more than that too, because you talk to anybody, in Middle America or on the Eastern Seaboard, and you start describing, Mexican food. Since we brought that up, and what are they going to think of? They're going to think of a taco. They're going to think of a burrito, and they're going to think that it's spicy. And they don't realize that Mexican food itself is extremely diverse. I mean, I've had pastry foods,
a gigantic umbrella there.
True, but I've had the most amazing pastry type foods that have their origins are Mexican that really opened my eyes. Same thing with Chinese food. A lot of people think, chicken chow mein or kung pao chicken, whatever it is. But Chinese food is extremely diverse. I mean, there's so many possibilities you can do with that. So it's nice it's important, I think, to really highlight, especially with the American Indian people, because for America, you can't get any more indigenous than that, and to be able to realize what kind of food possibilities are there. Was there anything that you were able to take from this experience, in making this film?
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the things that begun to fascinate me is to try to figure out my own family's history. And I think that this goes with pretty much every population in the U.S. that's not native, except for maybe people of Jewish heritage. If you ask your grandparents, if they're still alive, or your parents, if they're still alive, if they could remember what was in their great-grandparents' kitchen, you'd realize that, we have these incredibly diverse food stories ourselves. My parents from India, and when I kind of interviewed them about this, ate things that I would never have equated with modern East Indian cuisine. It's like the grains they had, the preparations they had, the types of spices they had were so much more interesting than what's at Indian restaurants, for example. And I think that's one of the sad things about, the kind of the melting pot thesis of America, that a lot of people who came with these great food traditions were kind of forced to lose them in assimilation. And now the American diet, I mean, we know from the 50s and 60s, the American diet was like canned food and frozen food.
Spam.
And spam. And you go like these were German immigrants. These were Polish immigrants that understood fermentation, that could make sausage from scratch. And it's like somehow the greater American culture told them that was not, those tastes were not American. We end up with something super, super bland.
Right.
So the most exciting thing for me is like rediscovering what is my family's food story, and the fact that I can actually get most of that stuff here. If I really, really, really search.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you've got this documentary, Gather. How long did it take for you to make this film?
In terms of the timeline for a documentary, it was pretty quick. We started in the beginning of 2017, and we locked picture about a week before all the post-production. Actually, we finished post-production about a week before all the post-production studios in New York shut down in March.
Whew.
Wow.
Good timing.
Yeah, I feel so much empathy for people whose films were set to launch at South by Southwest or Tribeca.
Oh, I know.
Even more empathy for those whose productions were completely ground to a halt.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were lucky as creators to squeak out, at least with the finished product, even if distribution isn't going to be as robust as it might have been.
Right.
Yeah, because you can't take it to the festivals as you probably hoped to do.
Yeah. I mean,
and I've been lucky that my last two films have had good, strong theatrical runs.
Exactly.
And you can take it to people. I mean, my last film was on indigenous running, and oh my God, the crowds that we got in Flagstaff coming from the Navajo res. The screenings we did in Scottsdale with a lot of the Pima natives, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
It's such a shame, but the movie is coming out. So what can you tell us about how this movie will be available to the viewing audience?
And when?
And when, yeah.
So blessing in disguise, we're all watching so much more than we ever have before. So we're launching digitally. We're going to be on iTunes on September 8th and Amazon. We're actually available for pre-order on iTunes now. And we're excited about the number of campuses and community screenings that are already being planned through various virtual platforms, and the tremendous excitement in the food world. People have cooked salmon, people have cooked bison, people have cooked corn, in very American ways. But
Right.
I think from seeing the movie, they're realizing that American way goes back a lot further than they think.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So
I guess, wow. Okay, now I got to admit, I'm really curious. I'm not a cook, but I do love good food, and it helps that I'm married to a man who's an amazing cook himself. So clearly this is a very deep film. I mean, it's in terms of its layers. It's not just about the American Indian people, but it's also about how food can be prepared and gathered, et cetera. So for so many, I think this movie could really appeal to just such a wide audience. So I'm terribly excited to see it. So people, I just want to say, if people want to learn more about you, and possibly, once this, great pause is over and you're back to working on projects again, where can people learn more about you? I mean, do you have any social media presence, a website, etc.? How can people learn more about Sanjay Rawal?
I'm mainly on Instagram, and my handle is at Mr. Sanjay R, Sanjay, and the letter R. And the film is at Gather Film. And we've been fortunate. Jason Momoa signed on as executive producer, and the attention that he's helping bring to the movie and the topic has been getting a whole new crowd. We've got like the Game of Thrones Aquaman fangirls and fanboys, interested in this topic now.
That's a really great way
That's
to get, especially, be it whether you're an independent filmmaker or independent documentary maker, it doesn't matter. The fact that you could actually get somebody of that kind of caliber who takes a look at your film and say, yeah, I'd like to be attached to this. I mean, it's nice to have that star power, and it will be great to see, the kind of response that this movie's going to get. I got to admit, I'm very excited about seeing it myself.
Well, I'm grateful that we can have these types of conversations, and I'm grateful for your time.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being on our show.
Pleasure's all mine.
Hey, it's Brian August, and some people say I'm a comic book legend, and who am I to argue? You're listening to Two Gay Geeks, and I don't exactly know why, but have fun.
And that's Brian.
That's Brian.
That's Brian in a nutshell.
Yep.
That was a fascinating conversation
very interesting.
with
And
Sanjay. It really was.
I didn't expect the whole conversation to go that way. I really thought it was going to be more about what the American Indian people are doing in that particular area and how they've reclaimed the land for the food. I didn't realize it was going to be about food.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, here's a few selected birthdays for August 31st through September 6th, 2020. August 31st, Itzhak Perlman. He's a violinist. He developed polio at the age of 4, 1 year before the trials of the polio
the Salk vaccine?
Yep. So, interesting. And also wanted to study violin, but he was refused because he was too small to hold a violin, so he taught himself how to play.
Well, I'm glad he did, because the man is brilliant. We had the pleasure of seeing him in Sun City.
Yep.
He was amazing.
He was later accepted into several different schools of music, including Juilliard. And he was on Ed Sullivan at the age of 13.
Man's probably a prodigy.
Yeah, and has gone to have an amazing career. Has both a Stradivarius that once long belonged to Yehudi Menuhin and a Guarneri.
He has the Guarneri.
Both of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and a third. And I met Itzhak Perlman when I was 13.
Yeah, you did.
We've got to go backstage, and that was because the string teacher in my little town was personal friends with the music director at Oklahoma State University, and he arranged that for us.
Wow.
So it was really fascinating. He was just such a nice man, to quote a friend of ours. Also on August 31st, Roger Dean, artist, fantastic landscapes for
very fantasy, sci-fi oriented, and he's really well known for album covers.
Yeah, for what were those two bands?
Oh, stop it!
Yes,
how dare you?
Yes, and Asia.
Yeah,
Yes, and Asia.
Yes, and Asia. Great. Now that's going to be stuck in my head.
Yay!
Yeah, mission accomplished.
Exactly.
But he's done album covers for other people. I mean, there's a solo artist who lives in Australia that I'm a big fan of named Ben Craven. And Ben was working on his second LP, and he was talking to a friend of his, and his friend says, I know Roger Dean. And next thing he knows, he's got an album cover. And who knows, arguably the fact that Roger Dean designed his album cover could say something about why the album was so successful.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I know that a lot of people back in the day when albums were the collectible things.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people would say, have you seen that amazing album art?
Yep. It's amazing. His work is pretty incredible. And then we have Alma Mahler. She was a composer in her own right and the wife of Gustav Mahler for a while. And so I guess that whenever you get graduated from something or being a muse, you graduate from your alma mater.
Moving right along.
Yes. Testing. Bueller. And then we have...
Yikes, that was bad.
I couldn't resist. It was there. Mm-hmm. It was begging to be said.
No, it wasn't. Really, no, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. Alma Mahler.
We will forever get that term wrong now. You know that.
I know. Facebook friend and former coworker Hillary Chile, and a filmmaker friend of ours, Russell Emanuel. Happy birthday, Russ Emanuel. September 1st. Lily Tomlin, comedian, laugh-in, Grace and Frankie. She is an open lesbian now, but has been in a relationship with the same woman since 1971.
Wow. That's just awesome.
Yep. She studied under Charles Nelson Riley, and in her one-woman show in Las Vegas, she opened for herself as a smarmy male lounge singer named Tommy Velour.
I've seen the act. It's just dreadfully bad. Deliberately, obviously, yes. And then we have composer Johann Pachelbel. He's from the Baroque era, influential in the development of the choral prelude and the fugue. And his most famous piece in the quote-unquote canon in D, that is more of a ground, based on a ground, and then other stuff put on top of it. And then we have Seji Ozawa, conductor, music director for the Boston Symphony for 35 years. I've liked his conducting.
And
I like his his interpretation on works.
Yep, and he is a proponent of modern composers. September 2nd, Salma Hayek, actress from Frida, and as well as many other films.
I loved her in Frida. She was phenomenal in that movie.
And she has dyslexia and a form of ADHD.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was fascinating. She was sent to boarding school at age 12 and was returned home for terrorizing the nuns. I wonder why.
I can only imagine.
She has her own production company. And then we have Lily Ukulani. That's
I'm glad
a tough
you
one
had
to say.
that.
She was the Queen Regent of Hawaii, and she was the last sovereign of Hawaii until the annexation by the United States. And she is also the composer of Aloha Hawaii.
Aha.
So she was quite the figure. Then we have Krista McAuliffe, teacher.
Sadly lost her in a
astronaut.
Challenger
Yep.
accident.
She was to be the first teacher in space, but the shuttle Challenger broke apart on January 28th, 1986. I remember that.
Oh, I do too. I was
yesterday.
I was horrified. I was a Mormon missionary at the time, and I was knocking on doors because I didn't know. I had no idea. I mean, this was obviously the day before social media and the instant dissemination of news. And we knock on this door, and this woman says, "I'm sorry, I'm really busy making lunch right now, and watching the news. The Challenger exploded." I went, and I turned to my companion, my missionary companion, and said, "Oh, that's a shuttle that had a space teacher on." So yeah, we bogged off and actually went to a home electronics store that we knew somebody managed, and caught the news. And oh my goodness, it was just one of the most horrifying things I'd ever seen.
She was chosen from over 10,000 candidates to be the teacher in space.
What really breaks my heart is that her students are watching it.
I know.
Live. And so, oh my God, horrible. The therapy they all needed, I'm sure.
I know. And then we have Facebook friend Scott Tyler. Happy birthday, Scott. September 3rd, Garrett Hedlund, actor, Tron Legacy.
Tron Legacy, yeah.
Went to high school in Scottsdale. Was a big punk rock fan.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Kitty Carlisle, opera singer, Broadway, movie actress. A Night at the Opera with the Marx Brothers was one of her claims to fame. And she was a panelist on To Tell the Truth in every incarnation of that show for 46 years.
Wasn't she also on What's My Line?
What's My Line? Yes.
In fact, What's My Line? There's an infamous incident on that one.
Yes. There was something, I can't remember
what. Well, there's a guy came out and he had some kind of food.
Yeah, and they all had to
guess
tasting it, and then they were told what it was made of.
And she spits it out. I mean, she's pulling it out of her mouth.
Yes. It's incredible. And she died at the age of 96 in 2007. Eileen Brennan.
I love this woman.
Clue and Murder by Death. Oh, my God.
So funny.
Mrs. Peacock and Tess Skeffington.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
She's hilarious.
Hilarious. Yes. And
she, towards the end of her career, I mean, I know she had a really bad car accident, which seriously sidelined her career. But she came back and actually appeared as a drama coach on Will and Grace. Yep. And she stole the story. She stole the episode. She stole it. She was hilarious.
I'm sure she did. She actually was on Laugh-In in the early days and was so overshadowed by Joanne Worley and some of the others on this. She quit the show before it got big.
I arguably, she may have gotten her big movie break when she did Private Benjamin.
Yeah, I think so. And then we have Facebook friend and friend of one of my closest friends from Spokane, Kimberly McGurk Clintobe. Happy birthday, Kim. And then Ethan Gold, who wrote the music for his brother's film, Song of Sway Lake.
Song of Sway Lake.
Yep.
My goodness, was that a great movie.
That was a great
And
film.
a great soundtrack, too.
Exactly. And then, good friend of the show, which you hear every week, Mark Biaggi.
I
He's a
love that
voiceover
guy.
actor, wonderful actor.
He's just a wonderful guy.
Wonderful guy.
I love
all
him to
the
death.
way around. Exactly. September 4th, Jason David Frank, actor, Power Rangers.
Oh,
was threatened here at Phoenix Comic-Con a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that created a bit of controversy.
Yes, it was. And then we have Beyonce Knowles, actress and singer, Destiny Child, first African-American woman to win the ASCAP Pop Songwriter of the Year in 2001. September 5th. Who's this guy?
Farouk Balsar.
Yeah, there we go.
That's his real
Freddie
name.
Mercury. Freddie Mercury.
Wow.
Freddie Mercury. I was talking like I had more teeth in my mouth.
Ooh.
Singer.
Okay.
He was a flamboyant front man for Queen. What a musician. What
Incredible musician. And
Wow.
I've really been on a big Queen kick lately. I mean, I've been a fan of Queen since '77.
Yep.
I love this band and I've had the pleasure of actually seeing Queen in concert with Freddie on their last U.S. tour. The man was just unreal.
Yeah.
And I think my sister and I think we had the pleasure of actually seeing him when he was vocally at his absolute peak. Wow. And I was just devastated when we lost him.
Yeah. Next we have John Cage, composer. Wow. What do you say about John Cage? A pioneer in the non-standard use of instruments. Very avant-garde. His most famous work is entitled 4 minutes, 33 seconds, where the performer does nothing for the duration.
Oh,
And it is not about 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, but it is about the sounds of the environment, of the audience, of the, that's what the piece is about.
I would be very interested to see how the music is written. I mean, obviously, it's all rest notes,
Yep.
or one big rest bar for the number of measures that it takes place. But I'm sure there's got to be some other notation on there as well.
He's also known for his pieces for the prepared piano, where objects were placed on or between the strings, and then the strings were hit with hammers and or multiple other things.
Interesting.
So very avant-garde, but interesting, and then some way bizarre things, that can be debated about whether it was music or not. It's for those people. Then we have Giacomo Meyerbeer, composer, most frequently performed opera composer in between Mozart and Wagner. Obviously, he was German, and when Wagner took over his anti-Semitic views, and he stifled a lot of Meyerbeer's work, and then obviously the Nazi occupation of Germany, and then after it was, I think in the 40s or the late 40s, early 50s, something like that Meyerbeer started to make another
Bit of a
comeback. And
what are some of his more notable works?
There's La Huguenots and La Prophète are the two most known pieces today, but he wrote dozens of operas. Then we have Facebook friend Amber KM and Greg Lowe, who's a filmmaker, and Tatiana Patton. Happy birthday, Tatiana. And Jason Carney, Mr. Phoenix Film Festival himself.
Yep.
Yes, we do. September 6th.
Oh, speaking of melons.
Yes. Joanne Worley, comic from Laugh-In. And that's the way they got around the censors. She was holding two
gigantic watermelons.
And said, melons!
Yeah. Laugh-In was such a subversive show.
Oh, my God.
Why I loved it so much.
Oh, yes. And then we have Roger Waters.
Oh, my goodness.
Musician, Pink Floyd, his solo career. We've seen him
quite a controversial
twice
figure.
Or something.
I mean, we've seen him twice. I've got 2 of his concert films, one for The Wall and another one for Us and Them. And the man is just, he's really on a creative tear these days, and I'm really happy for him. I'm not entirely in line with a lot of his ideas, but I still think that he's really carving out something completely new even today. I mean,
well, he admits that he's damaged, and
Oh yeah, yeah, he is. But I would say take a look at his last concert film, Us and Them, because he's not just trotting out the same old stuff over and over and over again. I mean, he's still trying to do concerts that have a message.
Yep. And then we have Max Schreck, actor from 1922, Nosferatu.
Nosferatu, yes.
Yes. And
terrifying black and white film,
my gosh, yes. And then Facebook friend Susan Martin Murph. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad? Not me, that's for sure. How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends over at Technorama Podcast, Chuck and Craig. They are they do a show every Sunday night on a live stream, and then they send that out on Wednesday of the following week. So that's what do we got next? I did something wrong there.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counsellors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
I scrolled too fast in the script.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
Passed a couple of things.
Well, it's our feedback time, and each of these items that we got the feedback from will be in the show notes for this episode at tggeeks.com. Starting with, regarding TG Geeks episode number 287, I got a comment from Gregory Ash, who we interviewed in that episode.
And we just heard from him today, too.
Yeah.
So.
He says, "Thank you again for inviting me on the show. I had so much fun. You were gracious enough and patient enough to have me on your show for an interview. I feel like I should also acknowledge that Keith and Ben were nice enough not to point out that I don't know the difference between gay and straight. Thank you again for having me on the podcast. What a treat. You guys are so much fun."
Well, you were a lot of fun.
He was
too.
a lot of fun too, because he was laughing at all of Keith's jokes.
Yeah, exactly. I like him.
Yeah, of course you do. And then we've got a comment from Ari Marino. It was her birthday that episode, and so we gave her a birthday shout out, and she comes back with "thank you." Same thing with Stephanie Weipert, and she comes back with "thank you for the mention. You guys rock." And then we close this off with regarding Katie Edwards' new tarot series book, The Hourglass Throne, announced. Got a comment from Hamish Down. He says, "Looking forward to it." And then we got a comment from Julie Cernita, and she says, oh, I cannot wait. So beyond excited, as we all are. And,
exactly.
And that's our
I
feedback
can't
for this
wait.
week. Oh, neither can I.
You can leave a comment on our Facebook page or on our website at tggeeks.com, directly on each episode or on each article. We publish everything to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can comment there, or you can call our listener feedback line, and we'll play your comment on air, and you could be famous too. Just call 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. And as always, please play nice. Now it's time for that sound.
Actually, I think that music came in a little too soon.
Yes, it did. Oh, well. We'll just do it out of order. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I guess in this case, this would be our weekly review, which usually comes later, so we're really going to mix it up today. And each of these story items that we ran on our website will be included in the show notes for this episode at tggeeks.com. Starting with Sunday, August 23rd, Nerdy Chupacabras, issue number 10. On Monday, the 24th, TG Geeks episode number 288. On Tuesday, the 25th, HBO Max announces powerhouse cast for LGBTQ plus docuseries Equal. On Wednesday, the 26th, Andrea's Angle, Words on Bathroom Walls, gives an unflinching look at schizophrenia. And I want to say that I think that is the best review I've ever seen Andrea write. It's amazing. It's just brilliant. And then on Thursday, the 27th, Andrea's Angle, Get Duked, a modern-day Monty Python. On Friday, the 28th, Hamish Downey's 5 Questions with Preston Kaido Hauser. And then on Saturday, the 29th, Ben's Breakdown Star Trek Lower Decks 3-episode thoughts. And that is what we ran on our website this past week at tggeeks.com.
And as everybody knows, we are huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or others. Please go to their websites, their Facebook pages, their Etsy pages, wherever you find them, Twitter, Instagram. Chat them up. Look at their stuff. Buy their stuff. Tell other people about their stuff. Please consider supporting independent creators. Joshua Tree Feeding Program is a 501c3 nonprofit food pantry for the HIV/AIDS community in Maricopa and Pinal County. They offer a place where the clients can select from a wide assortment of nutritional food items to take home. They set it up like a store so they can choose what they want, and no food is wasted. Please consider supporting Joshua Tree with a single gift or a monthly recurring gift, and go to jtfp.org. If you are trans or are questioning your gender identity, and if you are in crisis or are feeling isolated and need someone to talk to, or you know of someone in a similar situation, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to translifeline.org to learn about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help. You are not alone.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
So,
Well,
we've got the time.
we have the time. Yay. I just want to say one word about new Facebook.
Ick!
Blech. It is
Oh, it's crap.
horrible.
It's crap.
And I apologize. We apologize if we can no longer tag people in as we normally do for each episode. I'm sorry. Facebook will not let us do that. So
It's being very unfriendly.
very unfriendly. I hate the layout. It just
can
it's not friendly
No.
for us as TG Geeks.
No, I mean, I've been able to
So-
do some tagging, but I can only do it through the Facebook app, which is not really the most It's not the easiest way to do it. I can do some, like I said, I can do some tagging that way. But I worry that when the new Facebook officially goes, permanent at the beginning of September, that they may do a revamp of the app and then completely get rid of that possibility as well. So, but I mean, we used to be able to tag, especially the guests, because I felt it was important to do that. That way, their followers on Facebook would be notified. They themselves would be notified. They could do shares, etc. And now that's just no longer a possibility.
Yeah, and birthdays, I can't see far enough ahead sometimes beyond a week or beyond like 4 or 5 days. So if we miss a birthday and you're a friend of ours on Facebook, I apologize.
And I don't know anyone who actually likes the new Facebook. Everybody hates it.
Yep. Well, nobody. Yeah, exactly.
Nobody likes it.
Everybody's complaining about it.
Yeah, everybody's kvetching. That's exactly right.
Exactly. And now we have something that's a little bit sad.
Yeah, this came as a shock.
Quite a
I
shock.
saw this last night after we got home. We were out during the day, and so we got home, and I'm just surfing through Twitter, and I see this announcement that Chadwick Boseman passed away from colon cancer.
At the age of 43.
I know, and he'd had stage 3 for some time and was working as, in the Marvel films during this time.
The whole time, yeah. I mean, he was filming Black Panther.
He was probably doing Black Panther, but most definitely he was in both Avengers films.
Exactly.
At the time that he had stage 3.
Yeah, well,
and at least stage 3.
On, yes.
I mean, it's hard to say when he transitioned over into stage 4. Who knows? But the fact is, he was battling colon cancer at least when he was doing the last 2 Avengers films.
Exactly.
And it came as such a shock. And I'm seeing tributes just coming out of everywhere, and deservedly so. The man was a worker, and he still has an unreleased movie.
Yep, and a friend of ours who has contributed to the website,
Devette. She interviewed
him last October and said that he was just the nicest guy and very, filled with energy and just forthcoming with, all kinds of information and just really a great interview.
Yeah.
And she was just devastated.
A lot of people are really wrecked over that. I mean, fandom is just. This is the first, and I'm not going to count Stan Lee because the man, we knew that Stan Lee was going to leave us eventually. But of the major Marvel stars, Chadwick's the first one to leave us, and it's just so tragic.
Yeah, exactly. So, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Yes. Have a couple of shout-outs that we need to make. First, to the Arkle Times Post-Dispatch News for republishing some of our content from time to time. It is put up by the human Arkle, Brian Weber. And you can find the Post-Dispatch News by finding him on Twitter. Do that by searching for Arkle, at ARKLE. And he also has his Arkle Studios on YouTube. You can find them by going to youtube.com/Arkle Studios.
And what shows does he have?
He has his nameless cash grab. Shameless cash grab.
Fameless cash grab.
Fameless?
Famous cash grab.
Famous cash grab, yeah. It's his shameless cash grab series.
Sorry, bro.
That's okay. We're just having some fun at your expense.
Exactly.
His Rants versus Zombies series, as well as his games of Trick and Treat and Star Trek Online. And we must also give some shout-outs to a couple of Facebook groups for allowing us to post our episodes and relevant articles on their pages. First, Two Gay Geeks After Hours. When I asked their moderators if I could share there, they said, oh, please share away. Their URL is facebook.com/groups/Gay Geeks After Hours, and that's all one word. And then to The Gay Geek for the same. The URL is facebook.com/groups/thegaygeek. And we must always give special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And where can we be found? You can find us on TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, as well as...
I'm not about to repeat that.
As well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Also, check us out on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays. Listen to their other content. They are a 24-hour geeky internet radio station. Please rate us and review us on iTunes. And don't forget...
Oh, my God.
Merry Christmas.
Don't skip.
Don't forget...
Nurse, pass the 4 skips.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can surf the internet while you listen to us on your device. Okay, that should do it for this train wreck of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We will have several links on the page of things we talked about. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Stay home, stay safe, stay sane. Peace.
Cheers.